Welcome to the exciting adventures of first grade. This is one of Debbie Duck's offsprings. A couple years ago, I found this huge Debbie Duck to go with the CLE rhymes.
We want to spend some time unpacking how we can help our little people become successful readers, and we want to look at how to do that by giving them a good phonics foundation. Phonics provides the steps to reading. One of the first things that you're going to want to think about as you teach phonics is the idea of phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear and manipulate sounds within words. This is key for your first graders. Some of them do not have a clue about this. I'm thinking back to about 9 years ago when I had a little boy in first grade, and I realized after a few days, he thinks that the word cat is one sound. He doesn't realize that you can break cat apart and it's 3 different sounds. Act. Okay, I know that sounds really simple to us. Some of your students don't have a clue about that, so you need to teach them phonemic awareness. Now, it probably is not going to be incorporated into your curriculum as thoroughly as it should be, so you're going to have to be intentional about this. Say the word cat with me.
Cat.
Okay, now, take the k and replace it with m. You've created a new word. What is it?
Mat.
Now, take the word mat, delete the ending sound and replace it with p, and now we have
Mat.
Easy for you. Your students may not have a clue about that. A more difficult phonemic awareness activity would be, okay, let's say the word bring.
Bring.
Okay, now delete the consonant blend, burr, and replace it with bull, and you have
Bling.
bling. Okay, then you can talk with your students. Bling, real word, nonsense word. And then you talk about which words are more fun, real or nonsense words. So this is key.
I usually start with compound words because those are the easiest. And so I'm going to break apart a compound word, and then you tell me what the whole word is, see if you can hear it. So the first one is cupcake.
Cupcake.
Good. Sandbox.
Sandbox.
Mailbox.
Mailbox.
Right, that's fairly easy. Now we'll transition to 2-syllable words. Letter.
Letter.
Pencil.
Pencil.
Good. Now some 3 syllables. These are going to be harder. September.
September.
Wow. Alphabet.
Alphabet.
Okay, great. My students love that. They beg for this every day. We don't do it every day, but they love it.
One thing I wanted you to notice in the review that Glenda did there, did you notice how she started out with easier words? It's much easier to take a compound word apart. Okay, she's taken it apart and you put it together. That's easier than your 3-syllable word. So notice how she ordered that from easiest to hardest. Number 2, teach vowels and consonants. Vowels are tonal. They are harder to hear. And some 6-year-olds actually are not, I don't think they're developmentally quite ready to hear the vowel sounds. So I find that when I'm teaching a vowel sound, I may need to ask the Lord to bless me with so much patience that day because they can't hear it. They can't always hear it. They have to be trained.
The F and the I can be really confusing for students. And so there's some tricks that I've found that are helpful. They don't solve all the issues. So I tell them when we say the S sound, you kind of smile and say, eh. And have them, I always have mirrors for everybody, and they can look at themselves in the mirror and say, eh. So everybody say it.
Eh.
Just kind of give it a feel again.
Eh.
Then when we come to I, they like this. I tell them to wrinkle up their noses and punch the I sound and go I, I. And then they really like to use the mirror and see how they can contort their face. So everybody say I 2 times.
I. I.
I find in my curriculum, okay, the first vowel that I teach is the A, and so sometimes I will just overemphasize it. So they can easily hear if I'm saying apple, okay? They can hear the A, but when it's hidden in the word, like in the word candle, no, that doesn't have A. Well, what I may need to do then is just overemphasize it. So we have candle. Can you hear it? Oh yeah. And I find with some of that overemphasis, they're able to hear it better. Blend short vowel words. So after you've introduced a few sounds to your students, they're ready to blend them to make words. Your methods are going to vary a bit from curriculum to curriculum, but you always want to begin with 3-letter short vowel words.
One way is to use the slide analogy. And if you have a real slide at your school, they love using a real slide. And you won't do this every day. But with the real slide, I would have them go outside and the person goes to the top and holds the S. And as he's sliding down to meet the person that has the A, he would say sa as they bump into each other. So everybody do it with me. Ready?
Sa.
And they love that. But we don't do that very often. And so in the classroom, I think it's important that they all touch the letters when we're doing this. It just helps with the blending because this can be hard for some students. And so I'd have them come to the board and they would just do the same thing as I'm doing on the board. They would just go sa. And then when we're ready to blend the 3rd letter, this can be hard. They should be able to look at these 2 letters and say sa, and then you have d. Sad. And that can be hard. It just takes a lot of practice. So there's other ways you can do that, but this is one way.
Number 4, read long vowel words. After the short vowels are introduced, we begin the introduction with the long vowels. And again, here's some first grade language going on. Your short vowels are the vowels that say the sound, like ah, eh, ah. Your long vowels are when the vowels are saying their name, like a, e, I, o, u. A little tip here, long vowels are easier to hear than short vowels. So just throwing that out there for what it's worth. I know this is the way that we teach it and it feels like it builds on itself well, but long vowels are easier to hear. Often I will teach them that the E has a long arm, can reach over and tap the vowel on his head, and when the vowel is getting tapped, that's when he says his name.
They love drawing the arm on the E. Just draw the arm, his long arm comes around and says, you talk, taps on the shoulder and says, I. When we come to the long vowel words with the silent E at the end, I like to make a layer cake, a real layer cake. And they love this, and it just sticks with them. And so I give them each 4 toothpicks with letters on them that make a word. And then they take turns. Here we have lake. And so they would come up and put the L into the first layer. It's the consonant. They would stick that in the cake. The next one, the A, talks. And when you eat this part of the cake, I put chocolate chips or something crunchy in it. You can kind of hear it in your mouth. And that's the vowel. And then the next is the consonant. You stick that in the next layer of the cake. And then the frosting. When you eat frosting, it's quiet in your mouth. You can't really hear it. And so that's the silent E that you put in the frosting. If you have a bunch of first graders, by the time you're done, this cake will have all kinds of words just all around the cake. And after we're done, we of course eat the cake. So they love this, and it's just a good way to make it stick. And I also use this when I give spelling words with the silent E at the end. They don't know if it's supposed to be 2 vowels in the middle or the silent E. So if I say it's a layer cake, they go, oh, yeah, why E is at the end. So just 1 vowel, just the A, not A-I.
Like, wouldn't that just be so much fun to be able to make a word and then eat it?
And then another way that I just discovered a couple of years ago that they really like is to call the quiet E the sneaky E. And they love this because they love acting it out. And so I usually say it, and they're usually prowling around and acting this out. So it's watch out for sneaky E. Sneaky E doesn't make a sound. At the end of words, he hangs around. Sneaky E is on the prowl. He's on the lookout for all short vowels. He's been known to sneak about, stealing short sounds and making them shout. A, E, I, O, U. And they love that. So they're always down on the floor and acting this out. So I call them different things. Either Layer cake words, sneaky words.
Number 5, read word clusters, digraphs, and diphthongs. It's also important here to understand word chunks, like you have ing, ong, or So what we'll do when we're spelling words with the ing, I would call that a word chunk. Let's say we're taking the word spring apart, we would say ing. That's a word chunk. So you put the word chunk all on one finger.
I teach CLE, so I love their little rhymes. Even if you don't teach CLE, you can incorporate this into your curriculum. So the one for is, I usually have them use their 2 fingers, but I happen to have a little puppet here that I use. And we go Ronnie Rat runs and hides in Robert's hat. Why don't we all stand and do this rhyme and act like first graders? And feel free to hide your rat in your neighbor's hat. Okay, ready?
Ronnie Rat runs and hides in Robert's hat.
So even here, you can see how we're progressing from easiest to hardest. We started out with phonemic awareness, introduced vowels and consonants. You can see how we're progressing. So this is just a little bit of an overview of the reading steps. Again, giving you another visual for how we progress from easiest to hardest. We start out with sounds, go to word chunks, words, and then phrases and sentences. One of the things that you'll want to remember is that as you're teaching each of these steps, teach for mastery so that this is not a painful process for your students. Because you can easily see how in this sentence we were at the church. If you're still having a problem with the word chunk, it's going to be a lot more difficult to read this sentence. So, teach for mastery.